I wanted to go over some issues that I saw with the assignment ones, which I know we're all just starting out, that nobody should get too concerned about this, but you should pay attention to these little details. The devil is in the details. When you're making engineering drawings, it's important that you take care of things and make the drawings look good, follow proper dimensioning practices and layouts and those kinds of things. So let me just go over those again. One thing, so everybody seemed to be fine with creating the drawing, so that's really important. But let's talk about when you put your dimensions on here. A couple of things you want to watch out for. Now make sure your object snap is turned on. When you're dimensioning, don't crowd the part. Don't put your dimensions super close. The rule of thumb is that they're supposed to be like the height of the text should be the minimum amount of space that you have. So this height of the text here, that's the minimum amount of space you should have between the object and that dimension, and that's the minimum. So leave some space between here so when someone looks at the drawing, they can see what the part looks like without having to cut through the dimensions. Now, number of decimals, we have to correct that. The default is 4 decimal places. When you put 4 decimal places on a drawing, it means you're asking for some really significant accuracy on that part. If that's not the case, let's correct that. And that's usually the case, quite honestly. So go up here to annotation, click on this dimension style, modify, and then we'll go to primary units at the top. And here's our precision. That's the number of decimals. And in this particular drawing, I was asking for just 1 decimal place. So you'll see this will give you a simulation of what that looks like. Say OK and close that. So that looks a lot better. Now, the other thing you want to see is gaps here on these corners. Wherever you have a corner, you want to have a break between where that extension line starts. And again, think of this part is pretty simple, but as you get to more and more complicated parts, sometimes it's difficult to distinguish where the part stops and the dimensions begin. So that's why it's important that you have a gap there. And it just has to do with where you click on. So for example, if I click on that corner, I'm going to have a gap there. But if I come down here and click on this one, and I can put that dimension on there, which the dimension is fine. The problem is there's no gap there. So it looks like this edge of this part just continues on. So that's an issue. So it just has to do with where you're clicking. If you click on the corner or the endpoint of a line that's closest to where your dimension is, that's how you're going to get those gaps, right? So some people, I don't know, we're just starting, but if you accidentally, if I click down here and down here, pull this dimension up, sure, the dimension's accurate, but you don't have any breaks for these dimensions. So you want to pay attention to that. And it's just a simple matter of where you're starting your dimension. And when you have this kind of a situation here with dimensions, try to line up these dimensions. Remember, when you're moving your dimension around, if you bring your cursor over there, you can see that little block will light up. That'll mean that it's exactly lined up. Okay. Let's see, what else did I see? Oh yeah, few people fell into this trap, and again, it's easy as you're starting out because it seems, wow, I've got the space here. That's a great place for a dimension, but don't put a dimension on the part. The dimensions need to be out away from the part, so that is incorrect. Again, as objects get more complicated, you'll see how that works, about how you really want to be able to distinguish the object, the shape of the part, away from the dimensions and all the information that's going to appear on your drawing. So don't put the dimensions on the part. Okay, so I think those are simple things to fix. Just pay attention to those items. Again, don't crowd the part, don't dimension on it. Make sure you have gaps at each of your corners. But I was pleased, everybody's drawing, you got the drawing done. So that's, first and foremost, you got the drawing done. Now, once you're finished with this, let me put a name on there just. So let's go to our layout. That's going to show what it looks like on the paper. Now remember, you're going to have to adjust this border first of all. So double click in this area. Now see how you have an equal amount of space around this perimeter? That's fine, but it's taking up too much space. So if you double click out here and then click on that corner. Now, if your ortho is on, you're going to have to do this in multiple steps. You'll have to bring it up, and then you'll have to bring it over. Remember, stay away from that hidden line because that's the limits of the printer, and you have to do that for each of these corners. And ideally, what we want to see is an even amount of space. See, there's an even amount of space around the perimeter of this drawing. Okay, so that's just something you have to do each time, unfortunately, but it's not that difficult to do. Now, once I have the border where I want it to be, if you double click inside here, you can zoom in and out and pan. So, some people were giving me drawings like this, which the drawing is fine, but you need to use this paper wisely. So zoom it and pan it to where it's centered on the page and it's nice and big. Now you don't have to go crazy, but you shouldn't see just a bunch of white space on there. It's important that people can read all the dimensions and so forth. So that's what I wanted to see with that. To create a PDF then, remember you're going to have to, with AutoCAD, you have to export PDF. You're going to put your name and then put the information about it, the drawing number. Excuse me, I'm just going to quickly put the name in here. Drawing number, oops. Make it look consistent at least. And that'll save it as a PDF, and that's how I'll have you turn in the assignments. Okay, hopefully that helps clear up a few concerns.